They've got to be extremely explosive and fast. They have to have crazy endurance. And then they have to have a decent amount of muscle mass so that they can handle the grappling aspect. But wrestlers are also uniquely semi-opposed to lifting weights. They don't like to lift as much as you think. We're going to go into the historic Iowa Wrestling Strength and Conditioning Program, and we're going to start right now. Okay, so if you're a wrestling fan, if you're anybody who's into combat training, you likely have known that Iowa has been absolutely dominant in the realm of wrestling, in the realm of folk-style wrestling, especially up until Cale Sanderson went to my alma mater, Penn State. Now, why should you listen to me as we break down some of these videos? I was the strength and conditioning coach for Nick Wazowski when he was a 2-time world bronze medalist. I've also helped Pete Renda become an NCAA Division I All-American, getting third. I was also the strength and conditioning coach for South Dakota State up until January of 2026. My funding got cut. But while working with South Dakota State, working with Damian Hahn, Cody Caldwell, and helping them develop athletes like Tanner Sloan, working through Clay Carlson, all the way up to everybody that in the last 3.5 years, I think they've had 7 or 8 All-Americans. And then even this past fall, beating Minnesota. Hahn beating Minnesota. So that's my background in wrestling. Okay. Now, when we're looking at wrestling and we're looking at different principles, the whole thing that we're going to cover in this video is what are the principles that they're using at Iowa for strength and conditioning? What are those principles? How are they applying it? And then how can you guys take those principles and then apply it into your own training as a combat athlete? And I think it's a unique scenario where they are posting stuff on YouTube so we can see what they're doing. They're also known for in the wrestling room, just sort of being a bit more aggressive in the wrestling room, maybe not as dialed in technique wise, but just pushing the pace as much as possible. A lot of live wrestling, at least as far as my understanding of their room stuff is concerned. Now let's get into it. Let's see what they're doing. You can see here, so they're doing a seated box jump, right? Seated box jump. What is that going to do? Okay. That's generally where I would say you're working on some type of force development. Okay, so you're going off the box, and we're doing some type of twitch stuff, some footwork stuff here with the lines. So really, when we're thinking through wrestlers, right, I think the hardest aspect around training wrestlers is they've got to have crazy grip strength, right? They've got to be extremely explosive and fast. They have to have crazy endurance, like think 1,500 meters or 5,000 meter guy. They need that type of endurance. And then they have to have a decent amount of muscle mass so that they can handle the grappling aspect and any type of the actual pummeling that goes into this, right? So you have to create a very unique factor. When I was working with Gwiz, one of the things that we would do is we would use things like clean on the minute. So we're with Gwiz's case, let's say he did power cleans up to 160 kilos. He would only rest for about 45 to 60 seconds. So every minute he's taking a new rep, okay? And so what the goal is you want to get somebody really strong and as explosive as you can. So what's their broad jump? What's their vertical jump? But then at the same time, you want to make sure that you can do some type of endurance work and figure out like, okay, do they struggle with aerobic capacity or do they struggle with, high intensity work, anything along those lines? And so that they can win in overtime, right? So you got to figure all that stuff out. And then you've got to make sure that one of the aspects of training is not negating the other aspect. So they're doing those seated box jumps, and they do some shoulder warm-ups, it looks like, and then they're getting into some trap bar work, some trap bar jumps. Now they're doing some Swiss ball. So this would be a hamstring exercise. His glutes I ideally would be a little bit higher. So we're going some glute work. I call these meadow rows. So this would be like a landmine row. This could be like a one-arm row that you would grab with a dumbbell. So I'm going to try and, as we're watching this, we're going to look at these traditional exercises. So they just went through trap bar. Now they're getting into the landmine meadow row. Looks like this is not a specifically prescribed weight. They're just using a weight that everybody's going to use together. You can see the last kid had the same weight as this dude. And they're going to work through this specific session here, and then we can think through like, okay, what are they doing? This is like classic wrestler who might not want to lift attitude. I think that's the other unique part with the combat athletes. He only did his left side there. Okay, so now they're on a Kaiser machine and they're doing like a half step up. This is interesting because I've always thought like this could be comparable to what you would have a sprinter doing. Then they're doing hurdle hops there, not bad. Wrestlers are notorious for being super dialed into the minutia and the very specific detail on the mat and like hand placement, all the things that really matter, really matter, and all the things that are responsible for the evolution of the sport and how high speed and high tempo it has become. The scrambles are insane now when you watch. But wrestlers are also uniquely semi-opposed to lifting weights. They don't like to lift as much as you think. You know, you'll see guys like AJ Ferrari lifting. You'll see guys like Jordan Burroughs lifting weights, but it's still not that many. It's not that popular, I would say, for a lot of guys. A lot of guys might be anti-lifting and not. And one of my strength coaches was actually a Soviet. One of my throws coaches was a Soviet coach who worked with Alexander Karelin. And Bondarchuk used to say to me, so Bondarchuk was his name, and he would just sort of help them design their program. One of the things that he would say about Karelin was like he liked to do close grip snatches. He would do a lot of Zercher stuff, but then he would just do crazy mobility and farmer's carries, stuff like that. So, okay, so they're doing a skater squat here. It almost seems as though they're just showing random exercises, not necessarily a straight up program. I do really like skater squats for wrestlers. I think it's one of the best ways to really strengthen their quads and get them comfortable on that penetration step. Skater squat, single leg squat. I even think using a single leg squat in what we actually call it a whiz jump, where they would be starting in a skater position and then jumping up to a box. This is actually a really cool way to put weight on the pull-ups. As crazy as this might sound, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone do it that way. Most wrestlers, if they could do 20 to 30 pull-ups, back squat 1.5 to 1.7 times body weight, have good dips. I've always felt front squats transfer really well. Have good single leg squat strength. And then if you're running, I think a good timed run would be a 5K or assault bike for 5 or 7 minutes. If you're at the collegiate level, probably 7-minute assault bike, 30-minute assault bike as well. So we're doing safety bar squats. So this is where they're getting into some RFD stuff off the pins. So think about like when you get to a pin, the different part is that if you do a pin squat versus a full eccentric, concentric squat, right? When you stop, you have to ignite, and that's where you would see a traditional increase in rate of force development, which could, in theory, help their vertical jump, in theory. Lots of weighted pull-ups here. Some power jerks. I would be a little more skeptical of power jerks just because of the shoulder risk. I'd say too, this is interesting because even if you look at what Cal's doing at Training Lab, I think there's sort of like two, I wouldn't say entirely opposing thoughts in the combat world and combat training. I think there's going to be a more lifting centric version, and then there's going to be more like endurance centric version with functional style. And I think that this would definitely be in a little bit more lifting centric side, obviously. You know, wrestlers are known for just, lots of sandbags, med ball, kettlebell stuff. But this seems to be a little bit more traditional with the weighted pull-ups. I really like weighted pull-ups, and then with a lot of wrestlers hitting drop sets of, 15 to 20 pull-ups, basically going to failure. So good back work, good bicep work. And this is funny too, is there's actually, from a bicep perspective, I actually think there's a fairly large amount of research that shows that Chin-ups are the best way to target the biceps. And honestly, biceps play a huge role in your grip strength, huge role in what that mat strength will feel like. Okay, single leg RDLs here now. So this kid seems he's been doing some functional stuff like stretching. I think the most important thing to do when you're training with wrestlers is like figure out, you take a core group of lifts, like a rope climb is one for me, a power clean, a single leg squat, that 5K run, or a 30-minute assault bike, 7-minute assault bike, and you look through what's their broad jump, right? What's their dip, or how many pull-ups can they hit? So you go through all these different assessments, and then you can analyze with the athlete. Somebody like Gwiz had a great clean, great back squat, good single leg squat. Upper body was strong, not amazing, but pretty damn strong. Bench 400 pounds, right? Like, so you can look at those things and you say, okay, what else is Gwiz good at? Well, he's got a really good engine. Where could he see? What's the low hanging fruit? Well, we could see with him, can we improve his overall cardio, or can we improve his overall explosiveness, his overall like twitch force, right? Like, can we get him to react a little bit quicker? And that's the way I see testing going with wrestlers, is you want to try and build out a testing system, and then off of the testing system, create some type of aspect off the testing system that increases whatever that low hanging fruit is. I also think doing some type of isos here that you're seeing there, like chin up, hold, pull up, hold, neutral grip, pull up, hold. I like that one that they just did with the plate. Okay, so some more single leg work. This is where I think single leg squats come into play. I've seen the Yasuda, the hand crank quite a bit. This could improve this is good core work, but I have seen this also for strength endurance, and you can dial this up quite a bit. You can put 20 to 30 second goes on this. You could also go really, really heavy on it. This is going to be my takeaway. I'm going to stop here. We're about 11 minutes in. I think the biggest takeaways initially as we continue to work through this video. One, what are the main lifts? Okay, so we saw him do the trap bar jumps. We saw the incline bench. We saw heavy weighted pull-ups, right? Then the next pairing of exercises, and they did some power jerks. I would also say, you're seeing some type of strength endurance work. They're doing easy med ball mobility stuff on the side. They're doing some squats from the pins. Okay, that's like the general strength or accessory work. So those are the things that we're sort of seeing laid out right now. If you guys are a combat athlete and you're trying to figure out how do you piece all this together, we have a strength training app known as Peak Strength. Inside Peak Strength, we have combat sports. You can get it for boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu, whatever specific combat sport you have. We have a program for you to improve all of your capabilities. Okay, it's the first link in the description. It's the pinned comment. Head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store or the Apple iOS Store. Download Peak Strength. And make sure that when you're selecting, you want to train for a sport, and specifically you want to train for wrestling. Okay. If you're a coach, or if you're an adult or a parent or somebody who wants to just get in shape, you can train for athletic fitness. But inside there, we're going to go through assessments so that we can see what's your explosiveness level. How much strength and endurance do you have? What's your speed like? And then we're going to build that program based off of your specific weakness. So click that first link in the description. Let's get back to the Hawkeye strength and conditioning. Okay, so they're now getting into some incline bench. I think incline's a great one. Just got to be aware. Sometimes when we were working with South Dakota State, we would have our monthly calls. Sometimes if we were inclining a lot, especially if it wasn't dumbbell, occasionally we'd see some shoulder issues. I think that's a factor that we got to bring up, is just like making sure that their shoulders are okay. See that fat bar there, and that's the one thing. When I think about grip training, I think about grip training through three realms. Okay, you got explosive grip, you got iso grip, then you got that dynamic grip that rotates. Okay, so rotating here, explosive, and then just holding it like that old school mat strength. And so doing fat bar curls, that's great for that iso strength. Doing some type of like hammer rotations, that's great for that aspect of grip. And then the final thing that I think a lot of people discount is doing stuff like rope climb. He's doing explosive curls here. Maybe a little aggressive on the body English, but he looks like he is trying to target the grip. So bent over rows right after those curls. So it really looks like they're trying to really target the grip. So this is some type of complex here. Those are 25, so it's at 95 pounds. Bar is probably 15 kilo. Using that crossover symmetry. And now think through that too. It's like, okay, you get that grip strength work and you go rope climb, monkey bars, plate flips. Those are the more explosive aspects that I think are underrated. I think farmers carries, fat bar work, those are aspects that are going to be more traditional that you would see. And then I think the rotational stuff is where people actually miss out. Zotman curls, sledgehammer rotations, those are big for how you can rotate when you have that grip. And then the thing is, in a sport like wrestling, now you can use that to manipulate the head, to manipulate, a specific joint angle that you're trying to hit. I think crossover symmetry, this is good stuff, especially in the beginning of a training session. Typically, I would hammer that in the beginning. Now, common thing for wrestlers, because they tend to be a little bit more hunched, is they will have some shoulder issues here and there. So you got to make sure their shoulders are healthy, that they feel good. They're not totally beat up. So we got more fat grip press. I think my challenge I've always had with the wrestlers is like when Pete was working with us. Now this is going back. Pete All-American, I want to say in 2019 maybe. Pete could bench 315 for like 5. He'd do rope climbs with like a 60-pound kettlebell around his waist during the rope climb. He would do sled pulls with a rope with 400 pounds. Single leg squat, 300 plus pounds. He could power clean 250 all day. And I think it's like, it's setting the expectations. Pete was an extremely strong wrestler, right? So I think from a wrestler's perspective, it's like, what are the bare minimums that we should hit? Like, I think the numbers can be pretty low. If we got kids in 8th grade that can do, clean 240, well, then I think most collegiate wrestlers, if they weigh over 174, they should be cleaning 240. Like that's the way I think you got to think through it. Will the clean help them specifically? I think the clean will help them with a shot. It's going to help them with a stand-up. I think the clean also is a lift that they could do in season, and it won't beat them up. So this workout, they're really getting into a lot of different exercises, a lot of different rep schemes, complexes. This kid's looks like he's got about 175 on that was on the incline bench. He's going into back squat. Now he's going to be going into some curls. I can't wait to read the comments when everybody starts naming all the wrestlers. Okay, so again, the bent over rows right after that. This is a good complex. I like this, especially for the grip work. This is I would call this a good finisher. Great finisher. Let's get into Austin DeSanto, Spencer Lee, working with Tom Brands. These 3, and I would even say DeSanto and Spencer Lee, they have like the historic wrestling state final, Pennsylvania. DeSanto's from my hometown here, so DeSanto goes in and upsets Spencer Lee in the final. Spencer Lee ends up being an Olympic silver medalist, one of the freaking best ever from the U.S. Brings home an Olympic medal, and these guys train together. Brand's in there. This reminds me of it's like the gym in Jersey where they do like AJ Brown was their training. Okay, so now these guys are doing the power jerk, and then they're getting into I always call these gorilla rows. I don't know, but they're going into basically like a standing chest row.
Using your whole body to get the weight moving with the most speed equals power.
That's the thing. Okay, so Brands is saying at this point, use your body English, right? And that's one thing even on the mat that they might teach. They're going to teach you to use your body to increase momentum, to use your body, and it's okay to do that to a point when you're lifting. Now, you want to do that without putting somebody at risk. classic wrestler. Fatigue's a dumb word. Well, fatigue's a physiological thing that happens. And if we know why it happens, we try and prevent it, right? And if we try to... So stance in motion's a big thing here where it's just like, all right, let's go stance in motion. Try to improve their positioning, their cardio.
Wrestle. Relax and wrestle. Time. Spencer, you're throwing it at him. I'm in here, I'm stalking, he beats my head. I'm here. I'm in here. I'm here. It's got to be quicker. It's got to be quicker. Like boom, right there. It's got to be quicker. Boom. It's got to be quicker. It's got to be quicker. Good. Time. Walk and go another one of those.
I think that's the whole thing with fatigue. You say, fatigue's a dumb word. Okay. If we're analyzing their training and we know where their assessments are and we know someone fatigues with explosiveness or someone fatigues with some type of max strength or some type of body weight work like pull-ups for reps or even let's say at the 30-minute mark of an assault bike or even the 5K, their second 2,000 meters is a lot slower or whatever it might be. You can take that fatigue and then you try to beat it. And when you try and lay out your planning that way and you try to implement testing that way, that's how you try to improve the wrestling. The hard part is trying to get all the wrestlers bought in, all the coaches bought in, everybody bought in to do that to the T so that it's like, hey, this is how we're trying to set this up. And then doing that with a large group at a college level, with fatigue, with coaches, with kids and ideas and all that stuff, it can be challenging. I would almost argue something like this would almost be better suited just in the room. Just go take shots and sprawl because then both guys are going to get it.
Really realistic from a wrestling point of view, but we're throwing our legs back. All right? Stance in motion, go. Stay down and wrestle. Stay down and wrestle. Down block and reach out. You got 4 of them on your own. Explode. Run through it. Good. Time. Let it beat your hand. So I'm in here. Ooh, right there. You stay down. Ooh. See where I'm at? See, you get your hand. Yeah. Ooh, right there. Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
The slower I am, like the calmer I am, the better I am.
The more relaxed you are, the better it is. Grab a drink. We're going superset. We're done.
It's like how I feel when he hits me. I'm like this because I'm ready. That's why my arms. I let him beat me, but he didn't really beat me, That makes that's instead of falling, just your legs like this. Yeah, no, just keep. Like when you hit me, I'm like this because if he was coming up, you have something on you.
It's real. It's real.
We're different defensively, but
let's go.
That's interesting. I like that. That's where it's cool. Listen to the wrestlers actually work through that process.
10. So I want 30 set, superset. Spencer, probably 60 ball, go lighter. 80's good. We need a 70-pound ball is what we need.
I think that's the thing too. Brands has some crazy stuff, but he does, even if you watch him talking with Henry Cejudo when he got Cejudo to win the Olympics back in 2008, it was like, look, just do one thing better every day, every day, pick one thing. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to run a 5K or I'm going to go on the assault bike for 10 minutes at the end of every practice. I'm going to do dumbbell curl and presses every day for, 50 pounds for a set of 15 straight. You do that every single day, and then all of a sudden, your freaking shoulders, your biceps are rocked, and you're doing one thing better than everybody else. You're doing these carries here. You got an 80-pound D-ball. You're getting Zercher, and then you're shouldering it, and it's like, this is really hard shit. But this is where you see the mat strength. This is where you even see something like a Zercher deadlift or a front squat really, really will pay off in a lift like this. So now you can take that front squat strength and apply it through here. And then when you get on the mat, elevating somebody on the mat is not as hard.
You got 4 sets to go.
I think that pull-up technique could be a little better, Austin. Just a little better. He's an animal, though. There he goes. Absolute high motor. It's like dumbbell curl and press, D-ball shoulders, pull-ups. Dumbbell curl and press, D-ball shouldering, and then pull-ups. Outside of rope climbs and sled pulls, I wouldn't say there's many movements better than a pull-up for a wrestler. I look at the pull-up as the squat for them. The squat they should use should be the single leg squat. I think this is great because it's like as a combat athlete, right? You're watching this. What can you do? Dumbbell curl and press pull-ups. Dumbbell curl and press pull-ups. You can do 5 sets of that, and then you can do 5 sets of 10 of the shouldering. That's a workout in itself, right? And that's going to be beneficial. It looks like they're finishing with that muscle up. You know, if you don't have access to a med ball, do squat and jumps.
It's the dumbest rule in American wrestling history to ban the sauna. We're going to take these guys into the sauna, and that'll be the end.
So taking them into the sauna, that's the dumbest rule. I mean, there was a couple reasons. So I was a religious studies major at Penn State. I had a professor, Charles Prebish. He actually was an official. He was a freestyle wrestling official. And his son, if I remember correctly, wrestled at Michigan. And he was in the sauna wearing sauna suits, and he passed out on the way to weigh-ins. And there was just this year of guys just passing out, dying, heat exhaustion, going to weigh-ins. And it's not necessarily that the sauna's bad. The bad part is the weight cutting and then not balancing your electrolytes and not recognizing, fatigue's stupid. Well, not recognizing that type of training has a negative impact on performance. And it doesn't make sense. So there's a reason why they did it. I'm not necessarily saying that reason's justified. I think there was other factors there, but that's sort of the game. So I think the big takeaway from the Iowa Hawkeyes, one, historic tradition from Dan Gable. I even wanted to mention my oldest son's named Lincoln. He's named after Lincoln McElravy. Okay. My second son's named Sanderson. He's named after Cal Sanderson. So I have a deep love for the sport of wrestling, and then being involved with South Dakota State for 3.5 years and helping them get all the All-Americans that they got. And really, they're just a great program to be a part of. And I think the big takeaways from Iowa is, like, look at those big lifts. They're doing the pin squats. They're doing, some of the trap bar jumps, stuff like that. They're doing lots of pull-ups, okay? They're doing some of the med ball stuff. They're doing some explosive stuff like the hurdle hops as well. Figure out how to piece that into your week, and then at the root of it, have 2 to 3 days of cardio. And the cardio days, you could have 1 high intensity and then 2 lower intensity, longer sessions that don't beat you up as much. So the big issue there is trying to play the game and balance overtraining along with what they're doing in the mat, out in the room, and how much stuff they're going to do as far as sparring is concerned. So that's what we try to do for you guys inside of Peak Strength. That's our strength training app. Again, it's the first link in the description. If you're a wrestler, click on Combat Sports. If you're someone else, you just want to improve your overall fitness, click on Athletic Fitness. Please, if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you subscribe, you ring that notification bell. If you want more content like this, click on this card right here, because remember, freaks, if you want to become a champion, you've always got to cultivate your power. Peace.